Hi, my name is Raymond Guzman. I'm a psychic medium, and welcome to my website and also to my YouTube channel. And for those of you that are tuning in today, I wanted to take the opportunity to discuss the top 11 questions that you always wanted to ask a psychic. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the first question from one of my viewers. And the question is, how come I don't have to be present in person for a reading? And that is very simple. It's that basically energy knows no time and space. There's no barrier for reading energy and souls. So if the person is, let's say, in Japan and I'm here located in the United States, basically the connection would still be there. It's almost like you call in a 1-800 psychic hotline and you get in contact with a psychic. You're not going to be there in person with them. You're going to be over the phone, so they can still read you. It doesn't matter if it's done by email. I also get that question related to emails and chat readings, and basically it's the same thing applies. You can be anywhere in the world and you will still get the messages will still come through from spirit. So thank you so much for sending that question in. Hi, the second question from one of my viewers is, why do you prefer email or chat sessions, chat readings versus phone readings? And it's very simple. I really feel that an email reading and a chat reading are more personable than doing it over the phone, even though they are not seeing me. I don't do Skype sessions. But you get to read. It's almost like reading a story or a book. When you're reading it, you kind of are able to interpret everything and really soak it all in and feel the energy from the words that are being given from your reading. And I have a lot of clients that actually look at my readings that I send them by email, and they come back and they're like, I've opened the email that you sent me about 15 times and I just had to reread it over and over because it was so comforting knowing, that you were able to provide that information. So this is one of the reasons that I do that. I also tend to think that you get to keep a physical copy of it. I know that some psychics, they allow their clients to record their conversations. But a recording is not the same as actually reading. You'd have to listen to it. Whereas if you're looking at an email, you can just read it, or if you're going through a chat, I do all of my readings on my Facebook Messenger, which is like a platform of Messenger, Facebook Messenger. And so basically you can go there, and as long as you haven't changed your profile or deactivated and came with a new profile, the conversations are usually there still. You just have to kind of scroll up. So this is exactly the reason why I prefer email readings, email and chat readings versus phone readings. Thank you so much for sending that question in. Okay, so this question is the question that probably every psychic gets asked. And the question is from the viewer is, why do I have to tell you so much info for a reading if you're psychic? Now, with me, when I first started off doing readings, I didn't require anything but a photograph to do the readings. I didn't need any kind of information. I don't need to know, just your date of birth. I don't need any other information other than the picture. But I kind of changed the way that I did my format of my readings because of the fact that when a customer or a client is paying for an email or a chat reading or any psychic reading for that matter, it is timed. So it's either I offer 30-minute or 45-minute sessions. So they tend to go fairly quickly, especially if you're in chat. And the thing is that being that I use the vehicle of typing this out, I'm a listener to spirit and I listen to everything that spirit's telling me. I type it out. That can take almost 10 to 15 minutes of time. So it goes fairly rapidly. And the problem with not having specific questions asked is not so much, I know some people or some skeptics would be looking at this and saying, well, you're just wanting to get information, then base your questions off of that. No, that's not how I operate, and any of my clients can attest to that. I don't only answer the questions that you ask. I also provide other things, anything that spirit has me see. that any messages that are pertinent to your current situation that you need insight into. But the reason that we ask for specific questions, or that I ask for specific questions, is because I could go off into a tangent and tell you everything that I see from your past, your current, or future insights, and that may not be exactly what you were wanting me to spend the most time focusing on. And for some people, some of my clients, they like to, just have me give them any messages that come through first, and they can ask questions, and either way is fine. But a lot of times there's just one specific or two specific questions that they really want to focus on, and then of course, like I said, I provide anything else that would be coming through from Spirit. So it's very important for the clients to get the most out of their session and utilize that time wisely. And that's the reason that I ask for questions. But when I first started off, and a lot of my clients can also attest to that, I didn't ask any questions, and there's some still currently that don't want to ask questions. Like I said, they just want me to type, and tell them what exactly I see. So thank you so much for sending that question in. Okay, one of the other questions from one of my viewers is, will you tell me if you see something bad in my future, why or why not? Okay, that being a psychic and a medium or a spiritualist comes with great responsibility, and what I do, I take it very seriously, and I deliver the messages directly as Spirit gives them to me. I work with the white light and all the souls that walk in God's white light. I am a child of God, and I do believe in God. Although that I am a spiritualist, I'm not religious. I am a spiritualist, and I believe in love. Is the universal language, is my religion. So when I'm doing readings for clients, I make sure that I give you unfiltered information from Spirit, the raw, honest truth. I don't sugarcoat anything. If I see something that could be deemed as negative by you, it's not going to be necessarily negative. That may be your interpretation, but it's anything that Spirit is bringing forth that's pertinent to your current situation that you need to know, to have a level of awareness created so that you know what to expect, and use your free will to make any changes, modifications, according to that. There's not a specific guideline. Do I tell people when they're going to die? Because that's a question that I get asked quite often. No, I don't ever do that. That's unethical to me, and that's not some information that spirits of God that walk in the white light would be able to give us as mediums, or for us to channel through ourselves and give you that information, or tell you when someone else is going to die, because we don't even know that ourselves. We don't know everything as psychics. We rely and trust in God, and we trust in the universe, the Great Spirit, to give you this information forward that we receive. But one of the things through all of my readings, I've never received information from Spirit telling me that, oh, so-and-so was going to die. Now, when I'm not reading people, there's been certain situations in my life that I knew hours prior to a person, that was passing, but it was never me reading someone. I knew that someone was going to pass, and that's a little different. Sometimes you get like a feeling or a premonition of the information, but as far as bad information, I really don't believe that I give any kind of bad information, or bad info that would scare someone. That is not the intent and purposes of the readings that I do. It's my intent and purposes are specifically to bring you healing and closure and peace of mind to the insight that is being given from Spirit. So thank you so much for sending me that question in. Thank you. Okay, so one of my viewers sent me a question, very interesting, and I get this quite often, and the question is, how do you get your messages? All of my messages come from God, channeled through God, through the energy of the Spirit. My spirit guides are two people, older female and a younger male. And then as far as the guardian angels that I work with, and I get all of this information that's channeled through me. I get it through my clairvoyant abilities. This is clear vision, so I can be sitting here and talking to you or doing a reading, working on your email reading, and basically I get snapshots, like a camera, a film strip, playing all of the information in front of me, almost like if I was looking at a television screen. And also I can hear things through my clairaudience, so I can hear spirit communicating through me, but not through my ears. This is telepathically through the mind. So I can hear that from spirit. And also I have clairsentience, which is the ability to clearly sense certain energies and get, information. I also have claircognizance, which is basically a clear knowing of things, of people, places, or things or events that I shouldn't have any prior knowledge to, but for some reason I have that knowledge, when I step into a certain environment, or I'm, stepping into someone's reading, to give them information. So that is how I get my messages. And like I said, I don't work with anything that is negative. I don't channel any negative spirits. I always protect myself, and opening up is very important before we do any kind of session, even if it's just by ourselves doing an email reading. It's very important to say a prayer. I believe in the power of prayer, so I always prepare myself by saying a prayer to my angels, to my guides, to protect me, and to God, and to allow the main messages that need to come through to be delivered to you. And so that's how I operate for that. So thank you so much for asking that question. Okay, one of the other questions that I received from one of my viewers is, how have you ever been wrong about something? And the answer to that is yes. I am not perfect. No one is perfect. We are humans. Even though we have spiritual abilities or a certain level of intuition, we're not always going to be 100% accurate. There's going to be some discrepancies, maybe timelines that we have given that are a little bit off. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're wrong, but I'll give you a good example of this. Back in 2017, I believe it was around April, and you can verify this by going to my website under the predictions tab. I write yearly predictions for the worldwide and celebrities, and also for Australia. I decided to do one specifically for Australia because I have a lot of Australian clients, and they wanted to have their own set of individual predictions or insights for 2017, 2018. So in one of these instances, I wrote a prediction about the LGBT same-sex marriage, and I had predicted that I had saw that within 2018, 2019, more so aligned with that. I did see, that becoming into fruition, basically becoming legalized. Same-sex marriage would be legalized in Australia. Well, I did that in April of 2017, and by December 2017, it was legalized. And I had a lot of people come to me and was like, no, you were wrong, you were wrong. And no, I was not wrong. I was wrong in the fact that the timeline that I had given was not the actual timeline, but the fact of the matter was that I did see before anybody else did. A lot of people saw. I got to see from spirit the prediction, that same-sex marriage was going to be legalized, because Australia was like one of the countries where this wasn't legalized at the time, and it did go through exactly like I had saw, perhaps not in my timeline exactly, but the fact is that I wasn't wrong per se. It did happen. It just didn't happen at that time. But like I said, I'm not perfect. I'm not 100% accurate. No one is. I would say that many of my readings are between a 90 and 95% accuracy. And sometimes it makes no sense when you're, receiving the reading from any psychic right then and there, because the information can be overwhelming. Your mind may be somewhere else thinking about something, and then later on I have a lot of clients come back and say, this did resonate after I had your reading. I just couldn't pinpoint certain things together. Another example that I would like to give for this question, was that the 2017 presidential election here in the USA, we had many psychics all around the world that had predicted that Hillary Clinton was going to become the President of the United States on that election. Back in December 2016, a year prior to the elections, I had made some predictions, and I had saw that it was specifically going to be a male that was going to be elected, and that he was going to cause a lot of controversy. I knew exactly who the male was. It was Donald Trump. At the time, I didn't want to specify his name in the prediction, but I did say there was going to be riots and there was going to be a lot of controversy, and it was an older male. And the reason I didn't give his name was because there was a lot of backlash that I would have received, because this, as you can tell, when the elections happen, it wasn't received with open arms. So there's certain information, that I have to kind of, I don't normally filter, but on this particular prediction, I had to kind of filter that, because I just didn't want to receive all the negativity from different individuals at the time who were not open to that possibility, of it happening. But that goes to show you that there was a lot of psychics out there that made a prediction and it did not come out the way they had seen. Now, but let me explain. A lot of the psychics were right in a way, because they had predicted that Hillary Clinton would win, and she did win the popular vote. So you see what I'm saying? Spirit works in mysterious ways. The messages that were delivered were wrong in a sense, but also right. So that is what I'm talking about as far as accuracy. So I want to thank you so much for sending that question in. Thank you so much. Okay, one of the other questions that I have received from one of my viewers is, does this go against my religion if I get a reading? That's tough to say, and it's a very tough question to answer, but I'll do my best to answer that question. Personally, no. I was born and raised Catholic, and I still, believe in a lot of the teachings. I definitely believe in all the characters in the Bible, Jesus, Mary, the angels, the Holy Spirit, God. And my question is, if you look at the doctrine and you look at Jesus Christ and you look at the teachings that he had and everything that he did, like he was able to communicate with the Father who was in spirit. You could say that Jesus was the ultimate medium. He was able to communicate with spirit, although he couldn't see it. Jesus was able to heal the sick, so he was a healer. Jesus was also able to raise the dead, and he also was able to see evil in certain places. So he had, obviously clairvoyance. He was able to see things that other people could possibly not see or even know. He had this special knowing and special abilities, and yet he was condemned by many people and crucified. Well, the same thing applies to a lot of us spiritualists that are that are psychics and mediums. We get condemned by the doctrine that says, this is against God. But then you have to ask yourself, why does God have so many people on earth right now that have these special abilities, and new people that are being born onto earth known as star seeds, and that are very much, it's going to all depend on your social conditioning, your beliefs, and your teachings. I will tell you this, that there's thousands of self-proclaimed Christians that actually do get psychic readings, but would never, tell their family or other people because they fear judgment. And there's a lot of Christians out there that are right now battling, of coming out of the psychic closet. They have certain experiences that perhaps they can't explain, or that the Bible doesn't explain to them, or any kind of the religious doctrine doesn't explain. And so these are, maybe they are seeing ghosts, or they're seeing spirit, or they're feeling certain things, or they're able to know things that are going to happen before they happen. And a lot of times we tend to judge other people, thinking that we're perfect, and we can cast that judgment. But a lot of the doctrine says, do not judge one another, be open-minded, because there's a lot to this world, and I believe there's a lot to the doctrine that was written by man and translated over years by various people, that things were omitted and things were not explained, like the fact of reincarnation. And there's so many people, recognizing who they were, or knowing things about their past lives that they wouldn't have any idea of knowing. So That is a good, very good question. But no, I really tell my clients, not to feel guilty. And if they feel like it's going against their background, just pray to God, and let them know, let God know that you are just wanting some insight. I don't feel like you should really feel like you're punishing yourself, or you should punish yourself or feel guilty for wanting to consult with a psychic or a medium, because of the fact of your religious background says not to. There's a lot of things that people, follow their doctrine, and they still go against it for certain reasons or purposes. So it's all going to depend on you. But for the most part, no, I would not tell my clients to feel any kind of guilt. I don't think it's wrong. I think it's there's a lot of things that are unexplained, and people are still learning a lot more about themselves, and knowing that you can love God and you can accept God in your heart and Jesus Christ as your Savior without feeling, that you are, evil, or that you're doing something that's against, humanity, because ultimately God is love and is accepting of everyone and everything. So thank you so much for sending that question in. Okay, so one of the other questions that I got from one of my viewers is, how can I tell a good reading from a bad or general reading? And that's a very good question. The first thing that I would like to say about that is that with my readings, I try to be as specific or bring through evidential information, only things that you would know or your family members would know. So a lot of my readings are more not general. When you receive a general reading, you're kind of left scratching your head saying, this doesn't apply, or you didn't give me any kind of timeline, you didn't give me specific information that I would know. It was more like kind of scripted. And a good example of this is like a lot of people that are newly beginning to read people, and they use the tarot or they use oracle cards. A lot of them, and I've received a couple of readings myself. Yes, I'm psychic, but I've tried to receive some psychic readings myself in the past through different Facebook groups, etc. And the one thing that I came across a lot was that some of the answers were directly like the verbiage that's off of one of the oracle cards or the tarot cards booklets that come with it. So you can kind of tell if it's kind of scripted. It will be in a way where the verbiage is not specific, it's more out there. And usually if it's I don't believe there's anything such as a bad reading specifically. I really feel that every psychic and medium is different, and every person is going to bring through some different information. But ultimately, the way that you'll know that it's a good reading is that if they hit a lot of points, a lot of things that are currently happening in your life or that have happened, there in the reading. And then you have to look forward to the things that are maybe more future oriented and keep an open mind, hold on to that information, And again, there may be certain things in that moment that may not make sense to you, and you may feel like it was a bad reading, but then months from now it makes more sense to you. So basically, there's a dichotomy between this question, and the answer to it. But I would say keep an open mind to any kind of reading that you're getting. Tips for you to seek out a psychic reader or medium is to always look at their customer reviews. Word of mouth is very important. But mainly, do your research, read the reviews. Most credible psychics would have a website, their own personal website. There will be reviews on there from actual clients who've had readings. Also, the level, of the accuracy that they can provide. Maybe through word of mouth you've received that, from a friend that's had a reading with a psychic, and they've received a reading that we're very happy with it. So there's just a lot of different facets that can make it a good reading, but overall you'll know when it's a good reading. So thank you so much for sending that question in. Okay, one of the other questions that I received from one of my readers is, how come psychic readings and predictions aren't 100% correct all the time. And again, I think I've answered this before with one of the other questions, but it ties into it. But the fact is that we have free will. Nothing is written in stone. I'm not a fortune teller, that's not what I do. I provide spiritual guidance and advice. But like I said, your free will is your ability to make your decisions and know what's right and wrong. And a lot of times we are led by our free will to make decisions. So even if a psychic or a medium tells you to follow, or gives you insight and tells you, this is what they see, or this is what you should do, you always will have your free will. And most people keep that information that is given to them, but they always follow their heart or their soul. That is the ability to follow your heart and soul's decision is your free will. And basically a lot of people will follow that and not listen or take heed to the advice or guidance that's given, only to discover later down the road that the psychic or medium was correct, and that this was the outcome. And so this is the reason that a lot of the predictions don't maybe are not 100% correct all the time. It's not necessarily that they're not correct, but your free will guided you to a new destination or direction, and you didn't listen to the advice that spirit was channeling through that vessel, through that medium or psychic. And so this is why it can seem like it's it's not correct 100% of the time. Also, you can also feel like certain things are not 100% correct all the time, especially if you've just experienced loss from a loved one, or you're going through something very emotional and fully stricken with anxiety and panic. You may not be receptive to the messages, or not ready to receive the messages. Even though you think that you are ready, you may not be ready or healed enough to receive the messages from spirit, that spirit is bringing forth to you. And again, this can be a reason why you would feel perhaps that some of these messages are not correct all the time. So like I said, every psychic and medium is different. Every psychic and medium is going to provide you ultimately with different information. Nothing is going to always match up 100%. So a lot of times psychics will, clients will go out there and get 3 readings within a month from different psychics and try to match up every psychic. So let's say they had one in the beginning of the month, then in the middle of the month they had another reading. These were by two different psychics. Well, by the time they get to the 3rd psychic, and they are getting a reading from them, they're going to be having what was told to them in their mind, from the 1st and 2nd reading. And then the 3rd psychic could be the most accurate psychic and give them the most accurate information, but it's going to be conflicting with the information that you had before. So I always like to tell my clients, try to stay away from psychic shopping. It's almost like going on a shopping spree for Chanel, Prada, and Gucci. You want to get all the labels, all the name brand clothing, and you want to maybe interlock certain pieces and see if they match, and they may not match because there's different styles. And this is just an analogy, but the fact of the matter is the same thing with a psychic reading. If you're getting a reading maybe once a month, try to get it from the same source. Or if you want to change it up, maybe just one reading one month, and the next month another reading from another person. Getting too many readings can be very confusing for you as the client, and can be very confusing when you're trying to compare all the readings together. And again, this can make you think sometimes that the reading is not 100% accurate or correct. So I hope I answered that question for you. Thank you so much for sending that in. Okay, one of the other questions that I have from one of my viewers is, can you do a psychic reading for my pet? And the answer is yes. And I actually have read quite a bit of my clients' pets. Basically, they're living, and they may have like some emotional issues going on, something not right in the body, and they're very important, because pets are not just pets. They're like family members, to the family, and they're like fur babies to a lot of these, a lot of you out there who have pets. So a lot of clients want to know exactly what they're going through. Maybe their eating habits have changed, or they don't seem like very playful. They just lay down all the time. And so I've read a lot of clients and given some kind of closure and help their pet kind of come out of that through the reading, because spirit when we're listening or looking at souls and energies, there's language is not a barrier. Even though pets cannot communicate verbally like humans do, a lot of times psychics and mediums are voices to these animals, to these pets. And we're able to give you information about, what's going on in their life. And like I said, it could be a horse, it could be a cat, a dog, a chihuahua, a hamster, it could be basically any kind of pet, and we would be able to give that kind of information through, as long as Spirit is willing and able to give us information to channel and to provide you that insight, then anything is possible. So yes, I do pet readings. So thank you so much for sending that in. And last but not least, the last question that I received from one of my viewers is, how can I get the most out of a reading? And that is a good question. The most that you can get out of the reading is getting all of your answers, all of your questions answered. That's very important and very pertinent to any kind of reading, because if you're going into a reading and you don't feel like you've gotten all of the answers that you were needing, then perhaps, again, the reading wasn't, you didn't get the most out of that. Also, realizing that through any reading, there's going to be tools given. I like to give all of my clients tools, not just insight, but tools so that they can, utilize these tools to help them navigate through their daily life and not necessarily be dependent on spiritual advice. Even though I'm always here and always, my doors are always open for any of my clients to, come to me for insight. I want them to be spiritually fed and spiritually strong, and know that they, a lot of the answers that are out there basically are within you, yourself. Everyone has a certain level of intuition. Everyone can tap into their own spirit. It's just a matter of you practicing and listening to that inner gut instinct. I'd like to give an example of this. I had helped a client and I had given them some insight about a job. They had asked me about a certain job interview that they were going to go on to, and I gave them, my impressions of the energy that I got and the information that I received from Spirit about the job interview. And the person went on the interview. They didn't listen to what I had told them, that perhaps, that even though the pay was good and the benefits were good, that the environment itself was going to be very stressful. It was going to cause a lot of, emotional problems and problems into the relationship and etc. Well, they ended up, getting hired for the position, and they took it. And about 5 months down the road, they came back to me for another psychic reading, because they said, you were right. I'm in this job now. It's like the most horrible job ever. It's so much stress, there's so much negative energy vampires everywhere, and so I just come out of the job feeling very drained. And so they basically didn't listen. So that's a good example of how of you really paying attention to what is getting given to you, and get the most out of it, and know that a lot of the information that is being brought forth is not to hurt you, but to help guide you as a tool. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for being a viewer. Blessings and love and light to each and every one of you.